Let's do a test to make sure that we're not getting feedback.
He's not listed. AMP staff is a panelist. And
Okay.
Fred Smith is a panelist.
All right, we're good.
We're good? Okay. So Madam Chair, you have one.
Okay, so I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:30. And if we can have a roll call to establish a quorum, please.
Commissioner Walton,
Here.
Commissioner Rana,
Yes.
Commissioner Walton,
I'm still here.
Commissioner Woodson.
He's looking right at me. I'm here too.
Chair Amadeo,
Here.
Commissioner St. John.
Here. Here.
Thank you very much. If you would all rise for a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So next we have special announcements and communications from the floor. There's no one present here. Do we have any guests? No. All right, then we are going to move on. Ex parte communications, and we don't have that tonight. So we'll move on to the consent agenda, which is the Planning Commission draft action minutes for November 9th, 2023. Does anybody have any corrections or questions to those minutes? Not seeing any, so if someone would make a motion.
Make a motion that we approve minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Woodson and a second by Commissioner St. John. All in favor? Oh, no, we don't do all in favor. We do roll call vote.
Walton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rana,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodson,
Yes.
Chair Amadeo,
Yes.
Commissioner St. John.
Yes. Yes.
We are going to be known for our inability to speak the right name at the right time.
All friendly people. No friendlier council.
Yeah, we do all get along really well. Okay, so next we move on to the public hearing. And I'm sure I didn't leave anything out. Nope. Oh, no, first we have informational items, but I didn't see any on the agenda. Do you have any informational items?
There are none, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we will move on to the public hearing. And the only public hearing tonight is the Planning Commission will consider adopting a motion recommending that the City Council review the final 6th cycle housing element and forward it to State HCD to begin a 60-day review period and find the project exempt from CEQA pursuant to section 15061 (B) (3) of the CEQA Guidelines. Project planner Guido F. Persicone, AICP Community Development Director, will lead us through this.
Great. And first of all, I just want to acknowledge that the commission is voluntarily coming here for a special meeting. I very much appreciate that. The city appreciates you volunteering an extra night. Because the housing element is due in December. That's really, I try to not, I acknowledge you're all volunteers, so we try not to have a lot of special meetings, but it just, we're running up against the deadline. So I just want to say thank you, first of all. So, yeah, but anecdotally, so I was speaking with the council member about 3 or 4 things a couple days ago. And I said, oh yeah, I'm bringing this to the Planning Commission on Thursday. And then we're going to bring the housing element to the council on Tuesday. And the comment was, oh, that should be a quick discussion because you've talked about the housing element a lot. So I know I've done my job as a staff member when I get that back, because that means I've done my job. I've brought it multiple times. You and the council have looked at this extensively. And so we'll go over the work that I've done in the last 4 or 5 months with the consultant team. But really my pitch to the commission and council is, and you'll hear this later on, is if we really don't make any substantive edits tonight or to the council on Tuesday, I can't guarantee certification, but we're pretty close. And we're very blessed because a lot of cities are still going through 3 and 4 rounds of review with the state. So so we're going to go over the recent work. We're going to go over the state input that we got, kind of next steps. And then just an editorial note, there were edits that the state gave us that we responded to. Those are in green. Those were done in September. And then when we got our official letter from the state, we made additional edits to the document. Those are in blue. So in your packet, you'll see that there's green comments and blue comments, and I'll go over that in more detail. So as you're aware, June 22nd, we came before the commission. I went to council on July 5th. From July 5th to July 31st, I ended up tabulating all 188 public comments I received. So we received quite a few comments from the commission and council. I can pull that up if the commission wants. July 31st, we ended up submitting to the state. And just as a courtesy and very much appreciated from the state, they met with us at the 45-day mark. That was on September 14th. And they gave us some just general comments. And then we met with them again October 5th. And they gave us a little more detailed comments. And because of that collaborative, relationship with the state, and because we're building so much housing here, the official comment letter from HCD was actually only like 3 pages. And by way of context, some of my Bay Area planner friends, they were getting 15 and 16-page letters, and then 10-page letters, and then 8-page letters. So I was expecting that. So, but because this commission and council, we've talked about the housing element, and this body has adopted 10 different ordinances in the last 2 years that I've been here, we've done a lot of the legwork already. We updated the density bonus ordinance. You guys looked at the ADU ordinance twice. So we've done a lot of housing stuff already. So we're in a really good position right now. So, and so in your packet is the full HCD letter. I'm only going to go over 2 or 3 that I thought were of interest for the community and commission. So as we spoke at one of the meetings, affirming fair housing was a big part of this housing element cycle. And that was a comment that we got back from the state, that they just wanted a little bit more detail about family status, how they fit into the overall housing market. So Rincon and Veronica Tam, who's on the call, they added some more verbiage just to fulfill that requirement. Marina Station. So Marina Station, a lot of building permits are going to be issued in the next 8 years, which is this housing element cycle. So the state just wanted a little bit more information about the exact number of permits, when the phases are going to be approved. And then they wanted us to add an action item to program 1.1 that basically mandate that we closely monitor the big 3 projects, Sea Haven, Dudes, and Marina Station, and make sure that we're basically staying on top of meeting our RENA goal for the 8-year cycle. So we added that language to program 1.1. This body looked at the ADU ordinance. The state's saying, hey, Guido, great work, but wherever residential is allowed, we need you to also allow the ADUs. And so in the CR, C1, and C2 zones, we do allow residential. So they want us to add language to the code that just basically says that. So it's a pretty quick fix for staff. And we added that to program 3.1 of the document in front of the commission tonight. So next steps are hopefully we get a favorable recommendation tonight. Hopefully a favorable recommendation on Tuesday. If there's any minor edits today, tomorrow, or whatever from the commission and council, we'll make those. and then we ship it up to the state. There's a 60-day review period. And hopefully we get certified in that 60-day period. And as I've already said, so in speaking with Veronica Tam and Rincon, they've combined done over 200 housing elements across the state of California, across many cycles. And we can't give guarantees, but there's reasonable certainty that Marina will get certified if no substantive changes are made to the document. And there are some broader fiscal implications for you as Marina residents. Brian McMinn in the Public Works Department did share that prior to me coming on board with Marina, he was ineligible for safe routes to school funds because we didn't have a certified housing element. All of that money goes to make sure that your kids, your grandkids have safe access to schools, better bike pedestrian experience. He did share that if we get this housing element certified in 2024, we are eligible for up to $10 million of active transportation program funds. And so that's funds that for the last 8-9 years, Marina has not been able to apply for. And all of that goes towards bike experience, the pedestrian experience, better curb, better sidewalk. And then on the negative side is if we don't certify the housing element in a timely fashion because of all the changes of state law, there are potential fines, more oversight from the Attorney General's office, and potential builder's remedy, which hopefully we won't be subject to. And to further solidify this, because we gave a tour to the HCD staff in the summertime and we showed them all of the housing sites and they were so impressed with all the housing that we're building here. They said, if we can get our housing elements certified quickly, we can then immediately pivot to getting the pro housing designation from HCD. And with that designation, there's $33 million of grant money available and $1 to $2 million per city is given out. So that's money that we could use for a whole host of housing type of opportunities. So the motion before the commission tonight is adopt a motion recommending that the city council review the final 6-cycle housing element, forward it to the state to begin a 60-day review period, and find that the project is exempt from CEQA. So that concludes my initial presentation. And we do have Veronica Tam on the phone, and we have Ryan from Rincon if you have more technical questions about the document.
So commissioners, does anyone have any questions on the document at this point? Commissioner St. John.
Thank you, Chair. Guido, just one question out of all the pages. Excellent. Okay. But on Rena, can you give me a little more of your wisdom on how often the Rena numbers change in the next, say, 8 years? Will the state most likely, yes or no, change the Rena numbers for Marina? And
No.
So these,
But with the caveat, though, that there was a state law that got adopted that at the 4-year mark or by 2028-ish, if a city is not meeting its kind of goals and policies that you see in the document and we're not making enough progress, the state legislature gave HCD the authority to do a mid-cycle review, and they could potentially say, hey, Guido, you're really not making any progress. Next cycle, we might add more numbers. So but the answer, 8 years, our 685 number should not change.
okay. And we are, from my recollections, we are solidly on good footing for achieving our Rena requirements.
Absolutely.
Good, thank you.
Commissioner Walton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is on, it's a clarifying question with respect to regional trends on page 13, where it talks about the population by racial group.
Let me pull up the document and then we'll, just so everybody has the. 1 second. I'll put it up on the screen for the commission.
Thank you.
Let me, the large document, 1 second. So, what page?
13,
Just 1-13 or?
it draft held it 13, just
It's
1,
just-
3.
It's
Oh, just 13. Okay.
Segregation and integration patterns and trends.
25,
No.
13.
Page
Oh,
13 of the
let's see if I have a
documents.
better number here. Because I see where they're differently tabulated, 27 maybe? No. I'm lying. I don't mean to be. 20.
So up on the screen is the document.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
That's the one.
Uh, let's see. No, that's not it. I see why. All right, let's see if I can find it in my little.
Oh, it's in the appendix. Okay.
Hi, Commissioners. This is Ryan with Rincon. Guido, this is in the AFFH, Affirmatively Furthering Fair
Oh,
Housing
okay.
section. Yeah.
I'll go
Oh,
down there.
thank you.
A13, I guess. Is it A13,
it's-
Ryan?
It's the appendix, yes.
Okay, appendix
Appendix
A.
Page 13.
13.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. I'll get up there.
It's a meaty document.
Yep. Where is 147? There we go. A13. All right, there we go.
Yes. Okay, so my question is here, where it says Black African American, it has for the percentage of change from 2010 to 2020,
Right.
7.2 to 5.7%. Which is a 1.5% decrease. But then when you scroll down a little bit, it says that the Black African American residents has a change of less than 1%. And I'm wondering if that is correlated, if I'm reading it wrong, if I just don't understand, if you could give some clarity. for me.
Yeah. I'm just trying to read it real quick. So it says the new yeah, I mean, we can certainly clarify that those are non-substantive edits that we can make. That's fine.
Yeah, I just, and then do we know why that population decreased or?
I do not.
And- And then also, last question, I promise. Do we have a distinction between the descendants of American chattel slavery and other Black populations, or is this a flat Black explanation?
It's just straight from the census data. We don't make that distinction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Woodson.
First was on, comment on zoning. The emergency shelters comment that they made.
Right.
And not only because we had multiple conversations about that, when we were here, and I guess I looked at it, I see the response to it, but just kind of trying to understand what we miss. This is more just from my apprehension. Because I remember we had the conversation specifically about the definition of emergency shelter.
Yeah, and I'll have to pull up, I have, trying to see what comment that was. I have it up on the, 1 second. Trying to, let me stop sharing. Let me just pull up. I'm pulling it up right now.
Page 3 of their 11.
Page 3. Oh, here we go. So let me pull it up for the rest of the 2 people online. So it says, what does it say? It says their comment. Well, the element provides general information on emergency shelters. It also describes how it complies with SAB 2339. Among other changes, this amendment expands the definition of shelters, specifies the type of zoning designations to allow without a conditional or discretionary use, and demonstrate, including proximity to, the element must add a program demonstrate. And so what is the husband and husband rights show approach for compliance with by clarifying that by right emergency shelters do not require discretionary review. Okay, that's fine. The housing element now further describes that the locations appropriate for shelters are in locations where there is access to public transportation facilities, supportive services, and amenities. Program 7.1 was revised to ensure by specifying the zones in which shelters are permitted by right and without discretionary review, amends the zoning to expand the definition and ensures be permitted by right without. So I think honestly, Commissioner Woodson, and just reading the Rincon's response, and Ryan's on the phone, he can, and Veronica can also chime in. It just sounds like we're just clarifying that we're putting it by right. There's no planning commission hearing. It's if you meet the requirements for a shelter and you're in a specific zone, then you get it. And we're specifying that we want those near services and transit. So that's basically.
That's what I thought. I just
Yeah.
wasn't sure if that was something that, as we go through future, not, I think maybe past emergency shelters, I understand why that has a priority. But when we start looking at all the different types of classifications outside of shelters or the other daycares and the entire gamut of different permitted zoning criteria, are we going to run into those with other kind of the emergency shelters is the one the state cares about right now? Are there other ones that the state wants us to look at and consider down the road?
Yeah, and honestly, Veronica, go ahead, Veronica, you want to say?
Yeah, I just want to kind of emphasize that AB 2339, it's and really is dealing with emergency shelters for the homeless. And it does expand the definition of emergency shelters to include something called bridge housing and low barrier and navigation centers. So when you're doing the zoning, you can look up the legal definition of those and incorporate that into your definition of emergency shelters that intended to be not permanent type of housing. When it comes to what you are talking about, residential care facilities and all that, that's a different category that's not covered under the new state law that requires it to be by right without discretionary. Well, actually, by right without discretionary review has been in place since 2008 under SB2. So AB 2339 just actually adds in an additional requirement that the zone needs to be suitable for human habitation. You cannot put an emergency shelter in industrial zones.
Okay.
But also what I was going to say is that comment, Commissioner Woodson, is kind of the flavor of the comments we got back from the state, that maybe in other agencies that weren't as proactive, they would have said, hey, you need to rewrite your whole ADU ordinance because it's not compliant. Ours was, hey, you did a good job, but we need you to add this, this, and this to the code. So there actually are 6 items that I need to bring back to the commission in the next year, according to the programs in the draft document. And all of them are just very specific zoning code amendments that we need to make. So you'll be seeing those the next year.
And so that was my second question, which is there are 2 timelines that I pulled out of the comments. The first was an explicit timeline on water resources that they discussed, and I kind of wanted to kind of understand more of what they were talking about there, because I honestly I didn't quite understand the whole reason how that plays out. And then that's on the infrastructure setup. The second one, which is the implicit timeline, was that I didn't realize it was 6, but the edits and the changes that we have to make what is the general timeline that they expect us to make those? Because obviously it's, the way I read it is that the expectation is as long as you're addressing it and you make proactive addressing adjustments, we don't have to have it done by January, for example.
I have up on the screen, and Veronica and Ryan can help me, the water comment. And then the second part of your question is, so I've already started to plan out next year. If you look through the housing element, there are 6 policies that I have to bring to this body and get council to approve. And it says in the document by 2024. And you'll see throughout all the programs, the state 2 cycles ago, I could have said, oh yeah, I'll adopt the shelter ordinance by the end of the 8 years. Now they're like, when are you going to do it? You have to commit to it. So you'll look in the program, it'll say must be done by 2024. This must be done by 2025. And they front loaded all that stuff because of that change to the law that at the 4-year mark, they can drop the hammer on a city if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So you're going to continue to see housing element stuff for me as long as I'm working here to keep us in compliance. So. So.
That works. The only other thing I wanted to raise, and it's not a comment about it, it was more actually the way they finished it. Let me find the first 2 pages before his signature block. Where is it? I like the fact that he puts your name at the top of every page header. And this is, and I really I'm just curious based on your experience of being at 3 different cities and more over time, and kind of, so HCD, and it's quote, HCD appreciates the diligent efforts and outstanding dedication your team provided in preparation of the city's housing element, et cetera. I totally get it. I completely agree that that what we've done is through your leadership has been outstanding, getting us to where we're at today. I am just, this is just me curiosity wise with the state. Where does the state put a sentence like that into standard, or is that really unusual in your experience to see something like that?
I've gotten 3 of these letters from the state over the years, and it's, you know, the same kind of tone, like, hey, we appreciate the work you've done. And then, yeah, so.
Okay.
But that could be at the end of 16 or.
Right. Yeah, so
We appreciate
I-
the work you've done, but get busy.
right, exactly. And I've been on the receiving end of those where it's like, well, we really appreciate the work you've done. However, and then there's 10 pages of things you have to do, right? So, yeah, so.
I know there was, like I said, it was more, I'm just curious at more kind of the tone of how HCD
Yeah,
likes to put things in context.
well,
Right.
and that's a broader discussion. So in the trainings that I've gone to, HCD, because they have more laws, they have a whole legal team now that can go after cities. Generally, they'll work with the city. Hey, if you're making progress, if you're trying, you know, we were out of compliance for 5th cycle for a number of years, but under Lane's leadership, working with Veronica and other people, we didn't get the draconian letters because we were trying to show the state, hey, we're trying to work on the downtown, we're trying to do, right? And that's because of Lane and, you know, hiring good people like Veronica, right? But if you don't show compliance and you just are obstinate and don't do anything, then the tone of those letters from the state change. But they generally try to work with the cities. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, just mine, it was more clarifications for me.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. And Commissioner Rana?
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some comments to start with. It's a very comprehensive, very well compiled document. Compliments. The first comment I have is that demographic composition of Marina is changing. And we find that a lot of new housing which is coming up a large percentage of buyers is people are coming from outside. And that is kind of shooting up the prices also. It is affecting the affordability index. This document does not address that issue. And related to that, the university is growing. The number of students, even staff, is going to grow. The housing needs of that temporary nature are going to grow, and it is not addressed yet. And the second point is that with more and more ADUs coming in, density bonus coming in is going to, that means more houses based on the acreage is going to grow. So that is going to increase the parking needs also, and the traffic infrastructure needs. It's not been appropriately addressed in this document. And then there are certain percentages laid down for low income and various other categories of people. Is it database? Because this percentage has stayed the same almost for last, I don't know how many years. So over a period of time, people have bought houses, they've bought, so the percentage remains the same. So is it based on some data as to how many people are really looking for house in a particular income group, or it is just that percentage is decided arbitrarily? And another point I have is that talk about homeless, some shelters and housing for homeless. So who are these homeless people? Are they the residents of Marina, or it is people from coming up from outside and using city's resources? The concern is that Marina should not just become a haven for homeless from cities around the county and come and take benefit of whatever resources they have. So those are my comments.
Okay.
Guido, do you mind if I respond briefly to the homeless issue?
Sure.
I was on the Board of Community Human Services for 8 years. And one of the things that I learned is that over 80% of the homeless people in your community became homeless while living in that community. It is their home. It is where they spent any number of years, and it may have been their entire life. They don't like leaving what they know. So it's actually unusual for a homeless person. There are a few categories. There are youth that are called, I think they're called wanderers, but they wander up and down the coast from Washington all the way down to Southern California, but that's a very small segment of the homeless population. Most of them are living in the community where they became homeless. And I hope that makes you feel a little more comfortable about what we're providing.
Yes, thank you.
So thank you for addressing. And so in terms of some of your other comments, so I would say we are addressing affordability to a certain extent. You know, obviously housing is a regional and a statewide issue. Just so it knows, with the big three projects, there's 605 BM that are going to be built in Marina in the next 8 or 10 years. We're proposing to the state to build 88 ADUs, about 8 to 10 a year. We can definitely bump up those numbers. And the council just allowed us to sign a contract with the firm so we can have pre-approved ADU plans. And this is something we brought to the commission about 1.5 years ago. And with those, we're going to probably get those plans in about 4 or 5 months. And once we get those plans, once somebody pays their sewer and water and school district fees, if they don't touch the plans, we can literally give them a permit in a day. And so that, in terms of parking, we are gonna, there is programs in the housing element to discuss parking in terms of traffic. That's a little bit outside of the scope of this housing element, but the commission will be and is involved in the general plan update. And so there's a whole section of the general plan about traffic and circulation and parking. So,
Guido, can you explain a little bit more about how these different issues, what documents that they get addressed in? Because we do have a tendency as commissioners, we see something and we're not looking at the narrowness of that particular project, but the broadness of the entire community. And it comes up a lot when we're looking at documents like this or even complexes that are being developed.
yeah.
So if you can kind of address the differences and what we look for in different documents.
Yeah, so real quick, yeah, so the housing element is a chapter of the general plan. And so, the general plan will look at a lot of the issues that I just discussed. And this is a chapter of the general plan. And they all have to be consistent with each other. So does that answer your question or did you want?
It wasn't so much a question, but a
Right.
clarification so that the commission, some of our commissioners are really relatively new to
Right,
to
this work.
this kind of work and it was for instance, zoning is another chapter. So understanding that there are variety, I can't remember how many are required in the general plan. I think it's 8 sections that are required in a general plan to.
There are seven
Seven?
chapters of the general plan.
And that's
So,
more what I was
yeah.
asking for, was just to give that quick. This is addressed in the general plan, like the housing.
Yeah,
elements,
so
chapter.
parking, traffic stuff, there's the circulation element that this commission will be looking at. That'll be looking at the broader implications of how everybody moves within the city, either in a car or a bike or a pedestrian. So definitely when we bring that to this body, definitely key in on the circulation element. And in terms of parking, those requirements are mostly in the zoning code. So
Thank you.
no problem.
I just thought that might be helpful to the commission as they're evaluating things. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Wow, the water, that's correct.
Oh, yeah, let me pull up the comment and then let's see the response. So the comment from the state was, it's probably kind of a long while the element 8.1 includes collaboration with water agencies, the program should include discrete timelines for implementing throughout the planning period. In addition, the element acknowledges an HCD has received comment regarding the transfer of water outside of the water district. The element should clarify any impacts on identified sites and pipeline projects and add a program, if necessary, that will commit to frequent monitoring and completion of appropriate. And our response to the HCD has revised to include information on related to everybody has sufficient water available for service and no inventory or clear that would result in a need for a water track. Yeah. So some of these, this comment, a lot of the agencies, so we're really fortunate here in Marina, we have actually water to build. So this comment seems a little bit more applicable to our neighboring sister cities, but we have sufficient water for the big 3 projects and the downtown.
And that's what I was kind of reading.
So,
To me, that
yeah.
was, when they got on the water and the response that we put into it on the water credit transfer, addressing it was, we don't have restrictions on water. We have available water to build right now. And the only reason that I raise it is I wanted to make sure that as we're addressing this, that we're keeping it in line with our overall city development policies of how we're looking at desal. And that when we're creating a response to this, that everything is still in sync with each other. And the response was generic enough that I think it was. But the concern, my concern was more on lines of, okay, that read like, oh, if you're one of the others, any of the other cities outside of Marina, that you need to worry about your water, where water comes from, and if you're going to be in a deficit, you need to address how you're going to overcome that deficit. I'm assuming that that's how I kind of read with that comment.
Yeah, and Veronica
And that
and
doesn't raise
Brian
anything to
can
us.
chime in, but I mean, my general sense is our comment was just that, yeah, we have sufficient water and we don't need to transfer water to meet our goals. Is that a fair summary, Brian and Veronica?
Yeah, that's fair. Unlike other jurisdictions in the county, they're requiring to have a program to work with the water agencies and come up with a solution to try and get sufficient water to build housing. But for the city of Marina, that's not the case here.
So that's what I read. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that I understood what I read.
Yeah.
I have a question related to that, because one of the things that has been an issue with water in Marina was saltwater intrusion.
Mhm.
And that's been part of the concern with the desal plant that Cal-Am wants to put in, is that saltwater intrusion could impact our water sources through MCWD. And I'm wondering if that was the idea behind the comment, is that we may not have an impact now, but everybody around here,
That's true. That
knows
that might be
that
some of the
that-
genesis of, yeah,
the battle that's gone on. And I think
yeah, that's probably a fair assumption. And, you know, like I said, the comment and the reply is absolutely, we have a program in the housing element, program 8.1. We will continue to collaborate with our water agencies and continue to monitor the situation. I mean, that's the general gist of the program. So,
Is that because we aren't in the position to really be able to discuss Cal-Am in any of these documents?
yeah, I don't know if we necessarily want to focus on Cal-Am. That is
Yeah.
subject to litigation. But yeah, but like I said, and this is now my third or fourth housing element. This is pretty standard language. Like in East Palo Alto, sewer was the issue there. There was a real sewer lack of capacity. So in 2 cycles ago, there was some program that said you shall monitor and work with the sewer district to ensure you have adequate sewer capacity for that city. So it's a pretty standard comment. They just don't want to have you approving housing and you don't have the adequate utilities to support it. So it looks like Veronica wanted to say something. So
Yeah, I just want to also chime in a little bit. In some of the communities that we've worked with that certainly have water issues, such as Pacific Grove, Capitola, Marin County, they have water issues, but the requirements in the housing element is that you acknowledge that there may be an issue, and then what you are going to do diligently to pursue water or to conserve, like through developing new sources of water, or to do conservation. But the commitments that we had to make in the housing element for those communities didn't obligate the city to guarantee there will be water, because that's something that's beyond many local jurisdictions' control.
Also related to water, some cities are full service cities and they do have their own water, but most have the water district like ours is separate from the council. And so I think for me, I would be looking for language that would suggest that we would be working with our partners in the special districts related to water in order to ensure water for new development.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Just so that the language is fairly clear that we don't do it, but we're happy to partner
Right.
with those that
And it
do.
does speak to, collaboration with water
Right.
agency.
Well, and that was, I think, this is kind of building on that. We specifically discussed MCWD in the response, but we were also dealing with Monterey 1 because we're dealing with reclaimed water
Reclaimed
also.
water, yeah.
So did we just put in MCWD as the umbrella to talk all water? Because we really have 2 main organizations that we're working with to provide to meet our
Right.
water needs over the next 20 years.
Yeah, and I can look up the actual policy, so.
Like I said, I don't want to create more comments.
Mm-mm.
So I don't necessarily want to add in Monterey One or anybody else,
Okay.
because that specifically then starts addressing more details than we may need in here.
Yeah,
At the same time, I was just like, okay, we picked one. Did we just pick Marina Coast because that's our primary water and it's 90% of what we do?
yeah, I would have to look at the specific language in the policy.
But if you believe this meets the requirements, then
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say,
Yeah,
they're not gonna question, I'm not gonna say, hey, change it.
yeah, and if, yeah, yeah, here, let me pull up just so the commission can see it. Stop sharing. So it actually says, if you guys can see in 8.1, it does say, work with MCWD and other appropriate agencies. So that's pretty good. Like that's firm direction that I can follow. That's fine. No need to add anything. So,
perfect.
so
Okay, any other comments or questions? And I see no lights. So I'm assuming you would like a motion at this point.
yeah, that would be great.
Wouldn't it be nice? So there is a motion.
And then real quick,
packet.
we'll just do some real quick training for the commission. This one's relatively easy. Motions are made and then they're seconded, and then we do a roll call vote. If individual commissioners have questions, they can ask clarifying questions or amendments to the motions. So we just want to make sure we have a consistent, solid direction from the commission. So.
Would you like this motion to be the resolution, or do you just need the language that you showed on the screen?
I'll show the motion. So.
I found it. It's on page 1.
Let me 1 second. Let me pull up the. 1 second. There we go. And there's the motion.
Thank you. So if someone is willing to make the motion, Commissioner Jacobson?
I'd be happy to make the motion. I move that we adopt a motion recommending that the city council review the final 6th cycle housing element and forward it to the state HCD to begin a 60-day review period and find the project exempt from CEQA pursuant to section 15061B3 of the CEQA Guidelines.
We have a motion. We have a second by, oh, this is gonna be very good. There's some.
Why is that? Somebody have there. That better?
There,
All right,
there.
sorry.
Good. Okay, so we had a second by Commissioner St. John. So the motion is available for discussion if someone wants to discuss the motion, ask questions on the motion, or would like to make an alternate or an amendment to the motion. And I don't see any lights on, so it looks like we need a roll call vote.
Yes. Commissioner Walton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rana,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodson,
Yes.
Chair Amadeo.
Yes,
Commissioner St. John,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
very good. Thank you.
I have
And,
a
Thank you.
question.
oh, yes, go ahead, Commissioner
So-
Woodson.
Now that that's done with.
Right.
So my question actually goes back to the city council meeting last Tuesday. So we had this discussion, they had this discussion that we got to listen to about making motions. and
Right.
Making and reading the resolution that goes with it. And there was never really, it was raised as a topic and then it was never discussed. But it was an interesting kind of conversation of, we're making an emotion, but then on the backside of it, we have the resolution that goes with it that has all the
The
conditions.
whereases.
And all the
Right.
conditions against it. And so when we are making a resolution, we really are not making just the resolution, we're actually agreeing to everything in the conditions and the whereases. Correct?
Yes, yeah,
I just wanted to clarify that that was it, and therefore, and if that's the case, then ultimately, why don't we have to read the conditions?
why don't you have to read the conditions? Because they're just incorporated by your motion,
Yeah, there.
right?
The house, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
just for point of clarification, if you go to the city of LA, a meeting, I had to go there, the clerk will literally read the ordinance in front of the city council.
well, and that's.
And, or I've
Okay.
seen that, I live in San Jose. I had to go to some San Jose meetings. They'll literally read ordinance 369 hereby does say blah, 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 blah. We just incorporate by reference, right? That's just, unless you want
Carolina was the
to,
same way.
unless you want to sit for another 2 hours while the clerk reads things and they read it fast, you can't even understand what they're saying. So, yeah, so,
No, and I don't,
So-
and I'm
I
not
don't wanna
saying
go
I
there
want
either.
to, I just wanted to,
so,
so, but to that point, where it's at some point, our city, starting with the city council, then passed down through the commissions, we've made an interpretation that we are not going to do all of this.
We used to.
And how did we get from what a number of cities do, which is read the entire thing,
right.
to where we are, which is we just read the short condensed version and say, you know something, if you want the rest, go look at go look at the
Right.
conditions.
Well, I mean, the long answer is, I mean, everything I do is fully transparent and everything I do is a public record. And, you know, we have the truncated motion just for sake of timeliness and clarity, but everything is in the staff report, everything's in the resolution. And so if somebody wants to go back and say, hey, well, you're adopting the motion, but the resolution says blah, blah, blah. You as a planning commissioner or as a sitting council member, they can say, hey, I want to support your motion as staff, but I'm uncomfortable with this statement or that statement. And that's certainly within your right as a body, because everything we do is public record and transparent and all that other
And I
good
think
stuff. So,
that's where I'm getting to, is that we can sit up here and understand that. But when we have the public, not always with us, but with the city council, definitely,
mhm,
where they walk in and, okay, implicitly, we understand that this is what's happening. The public, I'm not sure necessarily understands that the motion that's being made is just the tip of the iceberg of everything and the conditions that go with, that get attached to it. at the
well,
same
no, I
time.
disagree because the packet is
maybe-
online and you can certainly get a hard copy of the packet from the city clerk.
I didn't say
could
it's
look-
not visible.
No, I'm just saying, but even the city council, when they're here, if somebody can pull up the whole 300-page packet and they can follow along, because that's our goal as city employees is to be transparent and open, so.
It's fine. And we've just agreed to disagree. I'm not sure that everybody does when they sit on the calls and understand it, because I think
Right,
that they listen to discussions, they're actively engaged in the discussions. But I don't think they understand all the formalities of how things are set up.
right,
necessarily.
A simple change, a very simple
Right.
change would be adopt a motion adopting the resolution
by reference,
by reference.
go.
And then
perfect,
the rest is.
there we
then.
go.
And that way they understand that we are in fact adopting the resolution. Now we have the words in there to say
Right.
that.
Right,
So motion
that makes
adopting the
sense, yeah,
resolution.
and yeah, the chair, you can remind me, we can make sure staff does that, that's fine.
I also think that, thank you, Madam Chair, because I also think that that gives, that grants them their agency. So just my opinion, but reading things to people long form, like they're kind of adolescent, it can take some of that agency and, you know, desire to go out and get information and consume it and understand it and bring it with you to the meeting. is kind of a process of being part of civil society. But, you know, when you, if you downgrade them to, now I'm going to read this to you because I don't think you understand it, perhaps that challenges their sense of agency. Is my
Completely
comment.
agree. Annie.
Yeah.
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 But like, and you know, these are all really good points to bring up. So for the commission and even for the council, that's why, as a city planner, we have a tendency to go into acronyms, and you'll notice that when Matt Remy spoke to you guys 2 weeks ago, he was very intentional. He didn't use acronyms. We had clear graphics to show what he was talking about. We will continue to do that as staff and with the consultants so that people in the audience, the two people here or whoever, that they don't feel like we're not being open and transparent. We want people's input. That's part of our job as city planners, is to get that input and present information in a way that's not full of technical jargon and whatnot. So people have that agency. So
We
Yeah.
were talking prior to the meeting about the importance of, are there any amendments or substitute motions? When that happens and you make either an amendment and it is agreed upon by the rest of the, by a majority of the commissioners, you need to say when you're making that motion that it includes this whereas, and you list those things that you want included in the motion. Because if you don't include them, what you have approved is what is currently
right,
as
Right.
written.
right.
So that's really important, and it is an additional whereas, or there may be an additional finding that you want included.
Right.
And so that it's appropriate to do that. It's also necessary to use the appropriate language.
Right.
So-
Exactly.
That doesn't mean you have to read the whole resolution. It just means that your additions need to be
Right.
included as either whereas or findings.
Right.
And I know the council does not do that.
Yeah. But we can make that a practice as the commission, just if the chair would just ping me, I can remind the staff. So
Great. Thank you very much. So let's see. What do we have left? No action items, no study session, staff updates. Do you have any?
yeah,
updates?
so the next time I'll see this body is December 14th. Allison, great planner. She's been working really hard on the local coastal program, the LCP. So she's doing the smaller amendment. She's going to be bringing to you guys the coastal resiliency, social vulnerability amendments. Those are all the things we need to add to our coastal program to make our marina a more resilient community if there is some major tsunami or whatnot.
Sea level rise.
Later, we're going to start working on a larger comprehensive update of the local coastal program, but that's going to be a 3-year process. And then Harvey Dodwell is going to have a proposal for a gas station in phase 2 north on Sea Deck Hill. That's going to be coming before the body December 14th. For the major projects, Marina Station, we're moving forward on the development agreement. That'll be going to council and commission shortly. Sea Haven, Matt's been working really hard on all the BMRs, getting those up and running. And in the dunes, we've issued the permits for the promenade. And every day I go out there, there's something new coming out. And so, yeah, a lot going on. So
Any news related to Cypress Knolls?
Cypress Knolls, Alice and I have written the RFP. We're going to be meeting with legal counsel and Lane in the next month or so. And then we'll get some direction about when we should release that RFP. So
And if we're gonna talk Cypress Knolls, then what's the status of the tower?
the tower, that
Sometime.
got approved by council in October,
Right.
September. And I believe Matt and Lane were working on the lease for the tower. That's my understanding. So a lot going on, and general plan and other stuff. So
I believe the tower came before the council, the lease agreement
Yeah,
before the council in October, I think.
yeah,
Because they kept trying to decide whether or not there should be a tower, and you
right,
had to remind them that the permit had been issued, and
right.
that they were just dealing with the lease agreement.
That's correct. That's correct.
So that's been done.
Yep.
Okay, correspondence,
Nope.
and you include major project updates,
Yep.
so we are adjourned.